else fails, we're going to be writing that here.
Is that the social
That's the
meeting?
social ed.
And this
And
is
this is the chalice for the whole denomination. Every Unitarian Universalist church around the world
okay.
lights a chalice, just like Pat Carolyn did last night.
Yeah.
And then this is our social ed
So
candle.
I like that one, not this one.
Yes, but we take the flame from here to that. If I can find the taper.
So what do you use to get the flame from here to there?
We have to find the thing that
Good morning. It is good to be here. It is good to be together at home, coming together across the miles, coming together across just a few feet, hopefully about 6 of them. Welcome to church. Welcome to First Parish in Concord, Massachusetts. I am the Reverend Liz Weber, your Minister for Pastoral Care. Welcome to our All Souls service today. Give me a moment to try to find our All Souls service today. My screen blanked out and it's not here at the moment. Eric, could you maybe give us a little meditative music while I pray to the gods of Wi-Fi? Thank you, Eric. It's good to have such a great team here. So welcome again to First Parish in Concord. I want to help you get a little bit situated in our service today. Beth, the Wi-Fi gods were responsive, so we are all set. It is indeed good to be such of a great team. If you are joining from home today, I welcome you, or anywhere else you might be online. Jan Power is our chat host today, so if you have any questions, Jan is here to help you out. She's a member of our Congregational Life Team Committee, and she is here to welcome you, to help you with any technical questions or anything about life at First Parish. Thank you, Jan. If you are in the building, I'll give you a few pointers about accessibility. If you would benefit from a hearing assist device, our ushers can give you a headset for that. There's an elevator to your left at both the balcony and first floor levels. All restrooms are downstairs and all have accessible stalls. Here we are continuing to learn and experiment, whether that's through pandemic life or through Wi-Fi life. Technology is a blessing. And so I thank you for your patience and for joining in this experiment, all of us together. Doing church, I believe, is what happens when we come together and are present in the moment. And so isn't it good that we can do that with one another in all of these different ways? So we are glad you're here this morning, and we are grateful for you for taking care of one another as a community. During the pandemic, to keep us all safer, we are wearing masks inside of the building and also social distancing. Our worship leaders, choir, and teachers are all vaccinated, and we strongly encourage vaccination for everyone who is medically able, as this is how we care for one another and for ourselves. To sing or not sing during our anthem and closing hymn is your choice. The choir will sing an anthem which has a congregational response today, and we will all sing the closing hymn. As the weather cools, you'll notice that we have our windows open for increased ventilation. So even though today we're lucky it's a little bit warmer, I encourage you to just bring layers and keep layering up as needed. We will bundle up just like our ancestors did in the centuries before us. We'd like to remind you to stay home if you're not feeling well, even if you think it's just a cold. It's worth riding through those scares and colds to keep one another safe. If you or a family member has tested positive for COVID, please call or email the church. Anyone on staff can help you out. And if there's been a COVID exposure at church, we will let you all as a congregation know while protecting the privacy of the person who tested positive. Together, we covenant to reduce the risk of COVID by each doing our part. So let's settle in. Today is All Souls, the day when we remember our dead and find hope for our living. Hear this call to worship. Come, let us enter a time of fellowship, a time to honor all those who have come before us, all of our life together and all that we dream for our future. Come, let your heart rest here a while. Bring your pain and your peace, your joy and sorrow and anger, your strength. Come into the presence of one another and let our service begin. Beth will help us light our chalice this morning in the sanctuary, and if you at home have a chalice or a candle that you would like to light at the same time, let us do that together. Our chalice lighting words are from Reverend Florence Kaplow. As we kindle this flame, we honor and remember those who have passed into the mystery. Their brightness lives on in our vision. Their courage lives on in our commitments, and their love continues to bless the world through us. Let us join together in our response to our chalice lighting. The words are in your order of service or on your screen or in the chat. O flame of our faith, open our hearts and fill our bodies and souls with persistent strength. Enliven our spirits and engage us deeply in this life of ours, this sacred, essential moment now. As we move into our time of remembrance, you'll see in the sanctuary an altar here in front of the chancel and also on the balcony, at the rear of the balcony. If you have brought with you a photograph or a memento, then in a moment while Eric plays our centering music, I invite you to bring it to one of our altars. If you did not bring something but are carrying someone on your heart, as is the nature of being human, we all lose people and carry them in our hearts, right? If you would like to write their name, you will find blue strips of paper sprinkled throughout the pews. If there's not one in your exact pew, you can ask a neighbor behind you or in front of you or across the aisle. If you need a pen, you can raise your hand and the ushers will bring a pen to you. If you are at home, I invite you to gather a photograph or a memento of loved ones you have lost and place them in a special place, maybe by your chalice or your candle if you have one of those, or just beside your screen so that you have them with you. And you can imagine them, all of these little altars, all of us together creating space for those who we love. It's beautiful. Just take a moment to take this in, this gathering of love, this gathering of those who have touched our lives. Our reading is Telling You Now by Reverend Jason Cook. I love you. I forgot to tell you the last time I saw you on the streets as you waved goodbye. A barely registered moment, you in jeans and your hair messed up and me in that jacket from the thrift store. But it's the ball, I remember, the military ball, where you took me as your date. How did you dare to? Way back then. They stared when we walked in, you in your uniform and me in my tuxedo. Someone thought I was the waiter. You had on white gloves and we danced, though I'm not a good dancer even when I'm not nervous, like I was that night, as the whispers swirled in the air around us. And later, when it was all over, we stood under a starry sky, like an old movie backdrop, you pressing into my hand a button from your jacket, a gold button with a military insignia on it. And I still have it. I love you. I forgot to tell you then, so I'm telling you now. Even though you are gone, stolen by AIDS. There's a new virus in town. I'd tell you now if you were here, a new thing to wrestle and fear, and so much of it is terrible. But it has reminded me of one thing, to say what's important, when I can, while I can, because I may not always have the chance. You taught me that first, and every fiber of my being is reminded of it now. I love you. I was scared to tell you then, so I'm telling you now. Because now, even though it's not what we expected, it's precious, and it may be all we have. How tender to look back on a life shared some time ago. To see these photos, these mementos, these names. To look back on what has been shared, what was said, and what was left unsaid. If only we'd known what to say and when and how to say it. This poem was from the early days of the pandemic. What might its author tell his lover now, today? This virus, it's not so new anymore, though we still worry about new variants. Some of us, a lucky few, continue to find more spaciousness and rest in these days. And that is a good thing. Most of us have adjusted to some sort of new normal, though the normal still changes as the science evolves. Many of us are exhausted, weary from day after day and week after week and month after month of pandemic life. Even the smaller stressors and losses add up, and they feel relentless after so long. And then there is our collective pain. 745,000 deaths in the US and over 5 million worldwide. Staggering. Those losses keep coming. Some of these photos, some of these names. Each person lost a name somewhere. At this time of All Souls, these losses can feel especially close, and they call up also those losses from past years, from before the pandemic. But I wonder, especially now, how do we honor these deaths from the past year and a half when it is not always safe to gather for a memorial service? In my extended family, 2 elders have died. One had a service, and one has not yet. It's been many months, and in some ways I feel like that grief has resolved, but then in other ways it feels wrong not to have circled around, to tell the stories of her life and the ways she touched ours. But my family and I, we can tell her now. And you, too, you can tell your loved ones now. Even those who died a long time ago, as well as those who died during the pandemic, you can tell them now. Perhaps you know exactly what you want to say. Perhaps something bubbles into your heart already, now, in this moment. Perhaps the words are at your throat, at your lips, ready to be shared. If not, here is a roadmap. It is from palliative care Dr. Ira Bjork. Over decades of experience with those who were dying and their loved ones who remained, Bjork has narrowed down what is most essential into what he calls the 4 things that matter most. They're the loose ends that people need to say and hear when death is near. Left unsaid, they can become our regrets. Fortunately, they're always available to us, and they work regardless of whether your loved one is still alive or has already died. They are a way to say goodbye at any time. The 4 things are: please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. The 4 things help us to think back on the highs and lows of our relationships. We take stock by telling the stories of pivotal moments as well as mundane ones. And this process, called life review, helps us honor the connection we shared and come to terms with the ending of a life. Working through old pain clears the way for gratitude and an affirmation of the love that is there underneath it all. So here they are again. Please forgive me. No relationship is entirely free from pain and strife. Through a lifetime, little hurts add up, and sometimes big hurts remain unresolved for years. Guilt can be a heavy burden. I like to say that in this church we don't do guilt, but in life we do guilt because sometimes we mess up. Guilt is like carrying a large stone around with us everywhere we go. I feel it in the pit of my stomach. Sometimes we carry our guilt about long after the harm that we caused is water under the bridge. And for that, I invite us to be gentler with ourselves, to see ourselves as our loved one would or as God would. But sometimes we carry our guilt because there is still a rift in our relationship. Seeking forgiveness is heart work. We must grapple with the impact of our actions and the pain that we have caused. We must do what we can to repair the harm that we caused. And we are also called then to examine why we did what we did and how we can avoid causing similar harm in the future. At the end of this road, seeking forgiveness can help us put down the stone we were hauling, find peace, and be softer with ourselves. Please forgive me, I forgive you. This second one may not be an easy sentence. Whether we seek it or offer it, forgiveness is powerful, but it is not simple. There are some who will tell you that you must always forgive the people who wronged you, no matter what they did. I'm not so sure. Some wounds are very deep, and I think the question of forgiveness is worth revisiting from time to time, but that only you will know when the time is right to forgive. When that time comes, be clear about what forgiveness means. It does not mean that the past never happened or that the harm you experienced was okay. It is not forgive and forget. Rather, forgiveness means that you are ready to put down some of the pain and anger that you have carried, to release your clenched fist, and continue your own life with more freedom. I forgive you offers grace to the person who hurt you. It is a gift to them. It is also a gift to yourself. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. Albert Schweitzer said, "At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us." Gratitude can feel good. It's a response to abundance in our lives, a warmth. Gratitude can also be very tender. It is an acknowledgement of our vulnerability. For when somebody cares for us, shelters us, encourages us, they were there with us in our time of need. When we say thank you to a loved one who is near death, we offer our gratitude to them in their time of vulnerability. Our open hearts can meet in the middle. We honor their inner flame and perhaps rekindle it just as they have done for us. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. I love you means so many things throughout our lives. It is said playfully in a moment of amusement, even teasingly, perhaps. It is said with pride after an accomplishment. At death, I love you is sometimes a stand-in for everything else that has otherwise been left unsaid and might feel too hard. It can be about forgiveness and regret and longing and goodbye and gratitude all at once. It can be a plea for death not to come. I love you. Don't leave me. But at its core, I love you is about connection. It is an affirmation of the tie that has bound us to our loved one through the years and that will remain after death. I love you should not be a substitute for the other four things, but I wonder if it may be the most essential. Love welcomes us into this life, and it is what we need most at the end. It holds us. There is a love holding us, holding all that we love. We can rest in that love. And we are called also to express, acknowledge, and create more of that love. I love you, and then the last word that we can say, goodbye. Goodbye is a final release, an acknowledgement of the passage from life to death, a signal that it is okay to let go, and a parting blessing. Goodbye is sometimes the hardest word to say, and yet it may be the most important. It may be what is most needed. My chaplaincy supervisor, Rabbi Shulamit Eisen, taught us to always add goodbye to the four things, and I likewise commend it to you. When everything has been said, what is left is goodbye. At the end of worship today, when you retrieve your photo or memento from the altar, here in the sanctuary, there beside you at home, I invite you to hold your item with reverence, to really take a look at it, really feel it in your hands, really remember the person or persons who you have brought with you. What do you hold in your heart? What do you still need to tell them? Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. Goodbye. It's not too late. Maybe you didn't tell them then, but you can tell them now. And then when you are done, look around at your life. Notice what matters most now. Go dance with your lover and your friends now. Give them tokens of your love. Say what's important when you can, while you can. You will not always have the chance, for we each die someday. So tell them now, because now, even though it's not what we expected, is precious, and it is all that we have. Amen, and blessed be. Our reflection question today is not for sharing with each other, but just for pondering in your own mind and heart, in your own spirit. You'll see it in the chat on Zoom, and I say it to all of us. What do you still need to tell your loved one? What do you still need to tell your loved one? Each week, we tell one another what is important in our lives. We share the highs and lows that we experience when we come together as a community. This week, we share the good news that Gibbs' mother is doing better and transferring to rehab. Hope and her family will celebrate her 100th birthday this week. And so we offer prayers for continued healing and good celebration. Also this week, Jim Reynolds will have hip surgery. I saw you earlier, I don't see you now. I'm sending you my love either way, and we all offer prayers and blessings for your surgery to go well and your recovery to be as easy as possible. Finally, sadly, we learned this morning that Tom Rourke, who was a renowned piano technician and a Unitarian Universalist, a member over in Carlisle and a resident here in Concord who had done work on our pianos. Tom died yesterday after having health challenges this past year. So we send our love and our prayers to Tom and his family, to his colleagues, to our neighbor congregation in Carlisle and all who cared for him there. In a moment, we will have a chance to call aloud the names of people who you are remembering who have already died. But in this moment, I invite you to call to heart and mind those who are still with us, who you would like to be held in prayer, blessing, and good wishes, to call their names aloud or type them into the chat now. For the rest of our prayer time, Beth, Loren, and the choir will lead us in a litany of remembrance.
We're going to join together in this musical litany of remembrance, during which time we will recall and sing the names of all who have been in our pastoral list who have died in this past year, members of our congregation and family members who were brought into the sanctuary on the pastoral list. There will also be a chance at the end, there'll be just a musical interlude that you'll hear, during which you are welcome to say into this space the names that you are carrying in your heart today, so those people can also be featured. The response is very simple. The words are, "You are not forgotten," and you'll sing them like this. You are not forgotten. Sing that with me. You are not forgotten. You are not forgotten.
Peter Mott. Renee Larson.
Ross Beatty,
You are not forgotten.
Jerry Rensko.
You are not forgotten.
Ruth Claypool,
You are not forgotten.
Paul DeBaca.
You are not forgotten.
Connie Haneke,
You are not forgotten.
Patty Washinek.
You are not forgotten.
Bernie Washinek,
You are not forgotten.
Paul Levitt.
You are not forgotten.
Dan Bell.
Bill Dritt,
You are not forgotten.
Betty Morrow.
You are not forgotten.
John Clark,
You are not forgotten.
Sala Davis Amnotra.
You are not forgotten.
Catherine Brinkerbeck,
You are not forgotten.
Charlotte Lowe.
You are not forgotten.
Dick
You are
Wallman,
not forgotten.
Philip Blumberg.
You are not forgotten.
Tom Muir,
You are not forgotten.
Rosemary Cancian.
You are not forgotten.
Mary Fink,
You are not forgotten.
Rodney Winborn.
You are not forgotten.
Tony Rodriguez Sr.,
You are not forgotten.
Jody Pietro.
You are not forgotten.
Jane Green,
You are not forgotten.
Paul Hargarton.
You are not forgotten.
Carol Gansel, Ed Ford,
You are not forgotten.
J.D. Child.
You are not forgotten.
Barbara Mayer Hopkins,
You are not forgotten.
Diane Cancian.
You are not forgotten.
Sue Bird,
You are not forgotten.
Anne Willard.
You are not forgotten.
Michael Sumner Hartshorn,
You are not forgotten.
Michelle Temple Frizzell,
Forgotten.
Karen Joy Romberg,
You are not forgotten.
Bud Brock,
You are not forgotten.
Reverend Gail Berger,
You are not forgotten.
Sarah
You
Bonds,
are not forgotten.
Tom Rourke,
You are not forgotten.
Take a deep breath with me. And let us hold silence to remember these loved ones.
Beautiful. I invite Jane Bloomberg and Carolyn Showett to come up with our special guest today, Pastor Stephen Tendo. We are so grateful for your presence here. They will be lighting our social action candle today.
Good morning. This is a remarkable moment, the three of us standing here. What are the chances, really? Pastor Stephen Tendo, a human rights activist from Uganda, who was tortured by Ugandan authorities. Why? Because there is an authoritarian dictatorship in the government of President Yoweri Museveni, which has been in power for the last 36 years and found Tendo's work of providing health services to children, women, and the elderly, and encouraging young people to vote, to be a threat. Pastor Stephen came to the U.S. legally, seeking asylum, and was held in detention for over 2 years, his diabetes untreated. We on the quick response team of the Immigrant Justice Task Force learned of Pastor Stephen's worsening health and deteriorating eyesight through Amnesty International. We wrote letters on his behalf and held our breath as news of his imminent deportation back to Uganda surfaced. But with an arbitrariness that permeates much of his story, ICE released him at the last minute, and he now lives and works for the DREAM program in Vermont. That's what happens with activism. It's the complexity and the joy of it. Fate and a shared mission can throw you into the same foxhole with people you'd otherwise never meet.
Good morning. I am honored to be standing on the pulpit with this amazing man. I cannot and do not want to think about the trials and tribulations that this strong man has endured. I played a minuscule part in his journey. I was a pen pal. I wanted him to know that there were people like me who were sickened by the treatment we heard about at the border. I wrote to him about my religious beliefs and asked about his. I told him about my church, my husband, my children, my grandchildren. We became friends. And now, amazingly, here I am, standing beside him.
Good morning, church. If I had an opportunity to speak, I would speak for 7 days without stopping. But my heart goes out in deep honor and love to each member of the Unitarian Universalist Church. Today, I light the social action candle this morning for hope, for faith, for people who work for a more just and human world.
Thank you, Pastor. You can find more stories and information by talking with a member of the Immigrant Justice Task Force, or look up the DREAM Project to see how you can help. Unfortunately, Pastor Stephen isn't able to stay for coffee hour, but it is a blessing that you are here for the service. Thank you very much. May all people have safety. May all people have the opportunity to flourish. May all of us be tended to well by friends and be able to extend our own hands to others in their time of need. I invite you into a time of being able to share your resources. It is time for our morning offering. You can text to give. If you are in the sanctuary at the end of service, we have baskets at either door that you can make a contribution to. Old-fashioned checks are also always welcome by mail. Today's offering, as always, is shared 50-50 with an organization doing good work beyond our walls. And for the month of October, today, the last day, we are sharing the plate with UTech, which is a post-prison job and life skills training program that has a 75% success rate. I welcome and offer my gratitude for your generosity today. As we come to the end of our service, I invite you to stay engaged. Whether you're online or in person, we have our worship sharing circle, which is an opportunity with Jim and Dana Snyder Grant to reflect on what the service meant to you today. The Zoom link will be in the chat after the benediction, and if you're here, you can gather at the Right Tavern to your right. To your left, we'll have coffee hour, and if you want to drive over or stay here, you are welcome to that. Please mask when you can't distance. There is a table where you can learn more about the Afghan family resettlement project that the Immigrant Justice Task Force is doing with us. Joyce and Carl Pulcini will be there to answer your questions. There's also a table for cards for today's pastoral milestones, and a welcome table with Sarah Ballard and Lillian Anderson, as well as floating around Liz Rust, our standing committee president and representative today. All of those folks are here to help you with questions or reflections about life at First Parish.
And now I am happy to invite you to rise with me to sing hymn number 103, For All the Saints, the traditional All Souls Day hymn. I want to remind you that there are 4 verses, and verse 3 is on the right-hand page when we get there, so you don't get confused. For all the saints.
Friends, let us tell each other now, Let us go out into the world, into this moment of now, which is exquisite, which is all we have. I love you. Bless your hearts. May you go and be a blessing in the world, which you already are. Let us say together our benediction. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. Remember your photos and mementos. Hold on to your good hearts. Blessed be.